In the land of ancient Middle East, covenants were serious blood-bound agreements. Parties would sacrifice animals, cut them in half, and lay the pieces opposite each other. Both parties would then walk between the bloody halves, invoking a self-maledictory oath. If I break this covenant, may what happened to these animals happen to me. May I be torn apart and die. It was a vivid, unforgettable way to say, my life is on the line if I fail. This is the backdrop for the covenant between the pieces in Genesis 15, also called the covenant of the halves, or Brit, Bein, HaBetarim, or covenant between the parts. Abram, later Abraham, had expressed doubt about God's promises of descendants and land. In response, Yah instructed him to bring specific animals: a 3-year-old heifer, a 3-year-old female goat, a 3-year-old ram, a turtle dove, and a young pigeon. Abraham cut the larger animals in two and arranged the pieces opposite each other. Birds of prey descended, but Abram drove them away. Then a deep sleep fell on Abram, along with a terrifying darkness. As the sun set, a smoking firepot and a blazing torch, which were the symbols of the Shekinah, or the manifested glory and presence of Yah, passed between the pieces. On that day, Yah made a covenant with Abram, promising the land from the river Egypt to the Euphrates. The minutest detail here carries a profound weight. Abram prepared the sacrifice, but fell into a deep sleep. He did not walk between the pieces. Only Yah, represented by the firepot and flaming torch, passed through the bloody halves. This made the covenant unilateral, one-sided promise from God. Abraham bore no conditional obligations in this ratification. God bound himself alone to the outcome. In a standard covenant, both parties accepted the potential curse of being torn apart if they failed. Here, by walking alone between the pieces, Yah declared that he alone would bear the full penalty if the covenant was broken, whether through his own failure, which was impossible for a faithful God, or through the failure of Abram and his descendants. God was essentially saying, I will keep my promises of descendants, land, and blessing. And if this covenant is ever violated on either side, I myself will pay the price in blood. I will be torn apart and die in your place. This was no light symbolism. It foreshadowed the ultimate cost of redemption. The covenant pointed forward to a time when humanity's unfaithfulness and a broken relationship with God would demand a penalty. Because Yah had sworn to bear it himself, the only way to satisfy that self-imposed curse was for God to take on a form in which he could truly suffer and die. This is why Yeshua came as Yah in the flesh, the eternal God who could not die in his divine nature, took on full humanity so that he could experience death on our behalf. On the cross, Yeshua was torn and broken and his body pierced, his blood shed just as those animals had been. He bore the curse that the covenant between the pieces had anticipated. By dying and rising, he fulfilled the unilateral promise. God kept his word perfectly. He paid the penalty for humanity's failure and secured blessing for all who believe, just as he had sworn to Abraham. See Galatians 3:13 through 16, where Paul connects this to Messiah coming, where Paul connects Messiah becoming a curse for us and the seed of Abraham. This removes any confusion about Yeshua's identity. The God who walked alone between the pieces in Genesis 15 is the same one who walked the gauntlet and hung on the cross. Only Yah can make and keep such a self-sacrificial covenant. Yeshua's incarnation and atoning death were the necessary outworking of that ancient vow, God paying the price he alone had pledged to pay. For anyone still on the fence about Yeshua's identity, he himself claims and witnesses Yeshua repeatedly identified himself with the divine name of Yahweh from the burning bush. I am who I am in Exodus 3:14. Key examples include John 8:58. Yeshua said to them, Truly, truly I say to you, before Abraham was, I am. The religious leaders understood this as a claim of divinity and picked up stones to stone him for blasphemy. Other I am declarations in John echoing God's self-revelation. I am the bread of life, John 6:35. I am the light of the world, John 8:12. I am the door, John 10:7 and 9. I am the good shepherd. John 10:11. I am the resurrection and the life. John 11:25. I am the way, the truth, and the life. John 14:6. And I am the true vine. John 15:1. These were not casual metaphors. They positioned Yeshua as the fulfillment of God's sustaining, guiding, and life-giving presence. Yeshua also claimed the title of Alpha and Omega, the first and last letters of the Greek alphabet, a designation of eternal sovereignty belonging to God. In Revelation, spoken by the risen Christ, I am the Alpha and the Omega, the first and the last, the beginning and the end. Revelation 22:13. See also 1:17-18, where the one who was dead and is alive forever claims, I am the first and the last, and 21:6. Finally, after the resurrection, when the risen Yeshua appeared to the disciples and inviting the very doubting Thomas to touch his wounds, John 20:28, Thomas said to him, My Lord and my God. Yeshua did not correct or rebuke this direct address. He accepted it and pronounced blessings on those who would believe without seeing. John 20:29. Thomas, a monotheistic Jew, was declaring the man before him to be his personal Lord and God. These details from the covenant between the pieces are not obscure trivia. They reveal the heart of a God who loves so fiercely that he binds himself to bear the cost of our brokenness. In Yeshua, that covenant found its bloody, glorious fulfillment. The one who walked between the pieces walked out of the tomb alive, having paid in full. Shalom.